Salam everyone, welcome back to another episode of Unfiltered. Today I'm with Nazish, Amina, myself Anam, and our special guest Nurah.
So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Nurah. I know her through Muslim Youth Camp, where I was her counselor 2 non-consecutive years when she was 12 and 14. Nurah is with us today because she has published her very own book. It's called 3% Chance, and it is about her overcoming the obstacles that come with being born with spina bifida. And so, Nurah, I'm going to let you take it away.
Okay, so my name is Nurah. I was born with spina bifida, which is basically a birth defect that affects the spinal cord and the nerves around, and I think the bones too. And so basically, when you're born, your back is open, and so they have to close it, and they can close it either before you're born or after you're born. But so we were part of a study where they were trying to see which is better, before you're born or after you're born. And so I got it after I was born. It's actually better to get the surgery done before you're born because you'll have less problems, and you have a higher chance of walking and those things. Alhamdulillah, it didn't affect me. Like it has affected the 97 other percent of kids that have it. So I was really blessed in that sense, where I've been able to live a relatively normal life compared to other kids. Alhamdulillah.
So, with this book that you've written, what exactly does it what was your intention of writing this book? Did you always want to write a book? Did you knew, that you did want to talk about this? Where was kind of your mindset when writing this book?
So I was 14 when I started writing this.
Wow,
I had no intention of writing about it. I had just said that I wanted to write a book. That was probably 2 years before I even wrote it. I was 12, probably 12 to 13, and I was like, I'm going to write a book just to say it.
That's
and
awesome.
Then there was one random day, I don't know why, but me and my cousin, we went on Amazon. We looked up a bunch of books about spina bifida. So this is when I was started to fully understand and wonder about what is it, and then more about what it is, and those types of things. And so then we saw that there was books about it, but they were mostly scientific books that doctors have written, or those types of things. And so basically what happened was we saw one book where it was written about this girl who was 7, and at the end of the book she ended up passing away because of some kidney failure or something. And so I was like, I don't like that. So then I was like, I'm gonna write a book where there's gonna be characters that have the birth defect, but it's not gonna be about me. It'll be loosely-ish based off of me. So then I waited 2 years, a year or two, and then I came back from camp, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. So then I wrote the first draft about some random thing that I made up with 2 characters that had it. And the first character they were like me, so they were able to walk and whatever, and then the other one was in a wheelchair and whatever. And so basically I wrote that, and then I had 2 of my aunts read it. One of them is a teacher, and the other one used to be a teacher. And so I was like, okay. So my parents would have them read it and see what happens. So then they read it, and then they thought that it was decent, I guess, or good. And so they were like, okay, we can't do much, so just find someone else to do it. So then we went through one of my mom's friends who has helped us find a few editors. And then she narrowed it down to 3. We chose which one we liked the best. And then I worked with her for a year, editing it. And then halfway through working with her, through that year and a half or whatever, my cousin who looked over my work before I would send it to her, she was like, you know what, just write about your own experiences, because that's the story you know the best.
Yeah.
So I thought about it for a day, and then I was like, okay, let's just do this, see where it goes. And I'd never talked about spina bifida before, because I was like, I'm never going to talk about it. And then I deleted the whole thing. I ended up writing about my experience and stuff, and it ended up being really good and therapeutic.
Wow.
That's
So you
amazing.
scratched the previous one
Yeah.
and you just kind
Started
of
all over.
started over.
Restarted it, yeah. I kept bits and
Wow.
pieces, but
Yeah.
then I
That's amazing, though.
redid basically the whole thing.
And at such a young age. I did want to ask, alhamdulillah, since you didn't have to deal with the issues that the other 97% had, what were your obstacles? Like, what was your experience with that?
So for me, like, so the nerves that were affected are like the nerves where you tell where you have to use the bathroom. So I don't know when I have to use the bathroom, so I have to use a catheter, so a tube where you put it in your bladder and it helps you use the bathroom. And then I do this thing in the morning to also help me use the bathroom, and that takes like an hour. So I do those two things to help me use the bathroom. And then it's not like a big deal, but like my small motor skills are like cutting papers and like stuff. It's really bad. Like I can't cut paper for the life of me. It's so bad. But like so like cutting things and doing things like small motor like wise is just a little like messed up. But besides that, it's nothing major.
Yeah.
So those things.
So, like, I met Nurah when she was 12, and I know that in your book, you actually mentioned that you don't like talking about spina bifida, and maybe it was because I was your counselor, but you never really hesitated to, like, tell me that you were dealing with it. I think also because you knew that I was, like, in nursing, and that, like, I was familiar with it.
I think that's why, because with you, it was the only reason I told you. You were really the only person I talked to it about with it. Because when you said you were in nursing, I'm like, okay, at least, you know, when I'm going through it in the morning, I'm like, okay, I'll just tell you about, like, certain things and whatever.
I feel like it was me and our nurse, Sony.
Those are the only two people I would talk about it to. I'm like, no one else needs to know. It's fine.
Yeah, but I guess, like, one of my favorite things, because I've had close to 100 campers by now, but Nurah is definitely one that stands out to me, not because of the spina bifida, but because of just, like, how, like, open and friendly she was. You were, like, able to make friends with, like, pretty much every cabin, and you were out there doing all of these activities. Like, I even sent you a few videos I took of, there's this camp game called, well, I don't like saying this, but it's Israeli dodgeball. It's called Gaga, and it is probably Nurah's favorite camp activity, and she is a legend at it. And, you know, sometimes I would catch myself, I don't want to say, like, looking at her differently, but, like, you can get, like, a little scuffed up playing that game, and so I'd be like, Nurah, are you okay? Are you okay? And so I would just make sure that she was staying hydrated and everything, and make sure that you weren't, like, falling over or getting hurt and stuff like that, but you were still just, like, so active. And with me, at least, you were really, like, open and, like, honest about, like, your issues and everything. And, like, reading your book, I didn't realize, like, how much, I don't know, how private you were about it. So I guess, I don't know, in a way I feel kind of, like, privileged that you were willing to talk to me about it, because, like, I didn't really get that vibe, like, from when I met you, you know, back then. And now, mashallah, you're a published author. Like, I write, but I've never published it because I'm too self-conscious. But, you know, subhanallah, it's incredible to see.
Now, I know you were just saying, like, you kind of kept things this private, right? You didn't want many people to know. But obviously now you came out with a book where you literally, you know,
You tell all.
You're telling the world.
So when did this shift kind of happen? Like, when did it go from, you know, I don't really need to tell people, or I only choose selectively who I want to tell, versus kind of like being open and being willing to share your story with everyone? When did that shift kind of happen?
Oh, when I deleted the book and then I had to rewrite it, because then I was like, okay, well, now we're paying someone to edit this, so I better go somewhere with it. And then I was just like, okay, you know what? It's whatever happens, it's fine.
But did
No
it take
one's gonna
kind of
care.
a lot for you to be like, okay, I guess, like, I want to do this? Or was it kind of like, you know what, I guess you're right, maybe I should tell this based off of my experience, because it would be the best way to tell it?
I mean, you can look at my mom, but I think, like, even at the end, I think that's when I was fully like, okay, this is going to be fine. It's going to be good. And this is after, like, talking to, like, my parents about it. And they were like, no, you know what? You're fine. So it's like, you're going to be okay, even though there's, like, these obstacles that you've had to face. It could have been much worse anyways. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So then I'm like, you know what? If someone can get something out of me sharing my experience and, like, have some sort of, like, you know, like, hope and stuff for, like, you know, maybe if their kid is going to have it, or, like, just, like, anyone in general that's, like, going through something, then at least then that's good. Then I did my part.
Yeah.
No, it's a great mindset to have, especially with all the support that you have too. I feel like,
Mhm.
alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
So, one thing kind of opening this up, I'm just curious to know, because it's not just spinal bifida, there's a lot of, I guess there's a lot of birth defects that can happen. And there are so many people, I feel like especially in our community, that tend to not really be so open about it because they don't really know where to go about it. You kind of, and again, I wouldn't know, so I apologize for kind of, if it seems like I'm speaking for you, but if I think about it, like you have to try to find your community and kind of be like, learn to,
Yeah.
I guess, work around it.
Because I feel like with the issue with that is because
Yeah.
there are people who kind of, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Nurah, but there are people who are definitely judgmental about it. There are people who
Yeah.
kind of look at you kind of like you're
Uneducated
broken
about
or
it.
something.
They're,
Yeah,
like,
people
uneducated,
They
yeah.
don't know like what comes with it.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with all of that?
Yeah. In
I
terms
mean,
of, like,
alhamdulillah, I'm blessed with like people that don't look at me like that because you
Alhamdulillah.
can't even tell that I
Yeah.
have something
Yeah, no,
that's wrong.
alhamdulillah.
So like I don't think anyone looks at me like that.
yeah.
But it's definitely hard for someone where you can't tell that's
Yeah.
like something's wrong. So I feel like it doesn't really matter what other people think as long as you have a good like support group around you, like your family
Definitely.
and like your friends and stuff. As long as they're supportive of what you're doing and like of you and don't think you're like broken or anything, then you're
Mhm.
good. Your life is set because it doesn't matter what anyone else really thinks.
Mhm.
As long as you have like those few good people in your life where they're gonna be like, you know what, you're okay, you can do like whatever you need to do,
Yeah.
then you're fine. It just doesn't matter then.
That's very well said.
Yeah, and I noticed in your book that, like, even though, mashallah, you have a very strong support system. Oh goodness, my adhan went off. I did notice that there was like some times where you were like a little frustrated with your support system. Like for example, when you were. No, it's okay because it's in the book, so your mom knows about it.
She does.
But so like for example, when you were younger and she was
Yeah.
trying to potty train you, and just like that frustration that like you guys weren't exactly on the same page in terms of like why you were struggling so much with it, You
Yeah.
wanna-
No, I think that it works both ways, right? You have to like
Mhm. Of
communicate
course.
both ways. And she was only in her like 20s when I was 5. So it's like hard for her as a young parent
Yeah.
to like have a kid with like these issues. And then when you're like going and being like, well, I can't do this certain
Mhm.
thing, it's
Mhm.
like it's hard to understand.
At that young age,
At
like,
that
why
young
you
age,
can't.
yeah.
No, that's fair.
So then it was frustrating for me to be like coming home every day and like
Mhm.
I would have, so when I was in kindergarten, would have wet pants when I'd come home, and I'd be like, she'd be like, okay, what are you doing? And I was like, I can't tell when I have to
Like,
use
you
the
didn't
bathroom.
know,
I don't
yeah.
know what's wrong. And she's like,
It's like hard
well,
for her to
yeah,
work with that
it's just
too.
hard for her to understand
Yeah.
too. So it was just hard for like everyone to understand
Mhm.
what was going on. So it took a minute for everyone to
Yeah.
understand what to do.
Yeah, it takes a while.
We got it.
Alhamdulillah.
It took some time.
Yeah, but mashallah, your mom is so supportive. But also,
Yeah.
what I really love is that your parents also, like, they trust you a lot. Because I don't know, well, I think they do. Because, like, they let you go to camp for, like, to get an idea of it. Camp is, it's a sleepaway camp, and it's 7 days with zero contact with your family.
Yeah.
So we take their phones, and we don't let them, touch or see any technology for the full 7 days, and the only supervision they have is us counselors and
Wow.
the camp staff members. And so like they really trusted you and of course us to like take care of you and like make sure that everything was okay. And I think that that's like something really remarkable, because me personally, if I had like a child or a loved one with spina bifida, I'm not sure if I would be able, like, they probably feel confident in themselves, but like would I be able to let them go? I don't
I can
know.
imagine that, yeah.
And I
And-
think it's not just with spinal bifida, to
Any-
be honest. It's just
yeah.
with any, like, as a parent, obviously we're not parents yet, but just like
Yeah.
thinking about it, you
think in
nurture
their
these
shoes.
kids, you
Yeah.
want to make
Yeah.
sure they're okay at all times, and you're like, who would be better to know than us parents,
Yeah.
So it's like
So it's hard
kind of like
letting
putting
them
them out
go.
in the world and like kind of letting them float and spread their wings literally and just.
I wanted to ask, did you have to kind of convince your parents to go, or were they okay with it?
No,
like, to
well,
begin with?
okay, so we know the person that runs it, so I think
Oh.
they were okay with me
Yeah,
going because we
comfortable.
know,
Hi,
we
I'm
know,
an
makes sense.
auntie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
we
I'm
know-
gonna attack her. So.
we know like the person that runs our family and friends. So I think they
Yeah.
were okay because I've known them since
Okay, that
I
makes
was
sense.
born. So
They're familiar with it.
they're familiar with like me
Yeah.
and like what goes on and stuff.
And that's their comfort factor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's definitely like an added security blanket. But then also, you were just, even at 12, because I usually get like the very young kids. And even at that age, like, it didn't really seem like I had to take care of you. Like, you were kind of just like on top of your business. Like, you would just be like, hey, I'm going to the bathroom, you know, and I was actually the one tagging along, you know, making sure that you did everything that you were supposed to do. But even at, you know, that, because all my rest of the kids, I had to like, you know, make sure that they drank water and that they ate and that they used the bathroom and that they got dressed.
Weird questions about the bathroom.
Look,
man.
okay, we have to do that because we had a year where it got really bad, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, no, but like I never had to, well, no, I still had to have those talks with Nurah, but she would still just be like very honest with me and be like, did you use the bathroom? And she'd be like, yeah, of course. And, you know, she would have to stay up really late, early. She would have to stay up after Fajr when we would get up, and she hated it, but she did it every single day.
I still hate it.
No, yeah.
Don't like it.
Yeah, and so, yeah, we would have to, I would drop her off after Fajr time, and then she would come back to the the cabin, like
cabins.
an hour later, and all the other campers would be asleep. And, but it's kind of just like par for the course when you're like a young person dealing with spina bifida. But you always handled it with a lot of like poise and maturity for somebody your age. I also remember that the first year I had you had this giant blister on your foot. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we couldn't find the nurse, and then I had to pop it myself. That was definitely something. I feel like I remember that more than the birthday. Yeah, I know, right? This is the joys of being a camp counselor.
No, it was more just like, I remember I was like, is it gonna hurt while we were doing it? I was more scared
Yeah.
of that than anything. I was like,
Yeah,
I don't want to
I
get
had to
hurt.
get a giant needle and lance it myself.
It was
but-
so bad.
Yeah, no, it was fine. Because she couldn't put her shoe on, because otherwise I'd have been like, just wait till you go home. But yeah.
Nurah, I want to kind of go back to the fact that you've written a book because I still can't believe. I mean,
At
literally
such a
off
young
of
age,
off
I
of
can't.
before we were recording, I was like, "No, you're 19, right?" And she's like, "No, I'm 17." I was like, for 19 itself sounds so young, but 17 years old and writing a book, I think that's seriously.
I mean, but you started way younger.
yeah,
right?
and you started
Yeah, you
younger,
started at
which is
13,
crazy.
13,
you
14.
14.
Oh my
14.
God.
Yeah, that's seriously unbelievable, mashallah. But I'm just kind of curious to know, where do you want to take, like, the ability, like, do you want to, in the future write more books? Where do you see yourself kind of going with writing and, creating and publishing?
I'm done for now.
Yeah?
Yeah.
my creative
Your
bump
creative juices?
is done for now. But who knows? Maybe
Yeah.
Yeah.
maybe we'll update it.
I think one of the best things
Soon.
about your
in
book
like 10
is
years.
is that you can tell that it was written by like not only someone who's like truly experiencing these things, but like someone who actually is a teenager.
It's like simple. It's
Yeah,
kind
well,
of like
not-
understood from like your
Yeah,
lens,
it's
like young
definitely
kid.
like from your perspective. I love the way that you describe the procedures, the way you prescribe like Lurie Children's Hospital. Like it all is from like a child's perspective, and I think that that's a really like unique angle that we don't get enough in books like these and like these kind of autobiographies. Honestly, like I don't know. I'm really proud of you. And then when I found out that you like when Sarah Auntie like approached us, he was like, yeah, we have a young girl Nurah who wrote a book, and I was like, oh my God, that's my camper. And then I went and bought your book right away, and I don't know, I just it's amazing to me. Like, what about other kids your age? Like, when you tell them that you've written a book, like, what do they say?
They think it makes me smart for some reason.
Really? Is that like one of the first things they say? Like, oh my gosh, you're so smart.
When I played badminton to high school, my sophomore and freshman year. Yeah, sophomore and freshman year. So when I told like my teammates, they were like, "Wait, so you wrote a book? Are you smart?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not smart." Like that doesn't mean I'm smart.
Oh, mashallah, she's very smart.
Then and then there's that, and then I think most people they just can't believe that I
Yeah.
wrote a book.
What's kind of like the feedback that you've gotten from the book that you've read, whether like your friends have read it, your family members read it? What was the feedback that you've gotten from the book from them reading the book?
Well, a lot of my family members have like reached out, and like my parents' friends,
Yeah.
and they were like, they never realized, like, you know, all this stuff that has been going on, like, in my head and, like,
Yeah.
what I've been, feeling and stuff. And so they're just like, oh, you make it look so easy. And I'm like, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
it's
they
a
were
little
like-
hard.
They were like, oh, you make it look so graceful and whatever. And they
Yeah.
were like, which is so eye-opening for them. And then, like, you have people who are 8, like my little brother, and he's just
Yeah.
like, all I understood from that is that you're frustrated. Why are you so frustrated?
I mean, it's
He's
pretty
so young.
frustrating.
Yeah, he's so young. Well, that's so cute that
It's
he's
cute.
so
He's
young.
trying to understand.
Yeah, so
it's really
Eight's a
cute.
young
So-
age, though.
Yeah,
That's
he
so
wanted to
cute.
read it, so I was like,
Yeah.
all right, just go ahead.
Aw.
That's so sweet.
So at least he
sweet, though.
understand. He got some of it.
Yeah.
So I guess that's good too. So
Yeah.
at least they're grasping something. But yeah.
So are you kind of happy now, looking back, that you did decide to write your own story and kind of go off of your experience rather than make up like a fictional character?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
probably wouldn't change it. It
wouldn't
was
have.
it was a good decision.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did it.
Alhamdulillah.
So no regrets on that end.
No.
That's good. Alhamdulillah.
And I'm sure, honestly, I'm sure it sounded really scary, especially going from not wanting to maybe share as much. And, you know, I'm really glad at the fact you mentioned earlier that you don't have to share. Like, you know, no one has to share anything if they don't want to. But, you know, now being able to kind of open up and talk about it and kind of let others into your experience and more about just spinal bifida, you know, I think it's amazing. And, it's just very inspiring, and I think more people need to have, like, if, you know, it's one thing to kind of hear about it, but when other people personally have experienced it or have
Yeah.
gone through it, and you read it through their lens, I think it's kind of, it just takes you in a lot further.
I feel like it makes it relatable on many
In
many
whether you
yeah.
have, whether
you have it or
you
not,
are able to
or
relate in the
any
main
other,
context.
you know,
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like at one
Yeah.
point or another, like, people will find it very relatable,
Yeah.
which is really, really good. And people need that a lot more
Yeah.
than we think.
So I'm really happy you based it off of
Yeah.
your experiences too.
Yeah.
So
No, because I could, what is it called? Some of the, like, moments that she talked about in the book, I actually was there for some of them.
Oh.
And, oh, God, I completely lost my train of thought.
it's okay.
No, I just, my point was, wow, I just blanked
It's
out
okay.
completely.
It's all good.
Wow.
It'll come back
No,
to you. It'll come
yeah,
back.
just, I'm not mentioned by name in the book, but I am in there. I'm between the lines. I'm
I
between
mean, I was like
the,
reading, and she's like, "Oh,
I'm
that's
between
fine.
the
Okay."
She's
pages.
like, I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
no,
like when I was talking about, like,
the, what is it called, the camp counselor thing?
yeah.
Yeah, no, I was there, but I was like asleep through half of it. But I'm sorry, my brain is just not.
It's okay.
It's all good. So Nurah, you know, kind of wrapping things up, I'm just curious if there's one thing that you had to tell, whether it be about your book, for those who, you know, haven't read your book yet, or just in general about spinal bifida, what's something that you would like to share about it?
I have to think. Wait, one
No, I know, I'm sorry, I put you on the spot. Like, tell us
I
now.
have to think. Well, I mean, first of all, my experience is very different from, you know, other people's experiences. Alhamdulillah, I was really blessed with being able to, you know, do all these things that, you know, doctors told my parents I wasn't going to do,
Yeah.
and then things that I ended up doing anyways. So one thing I would probably say is that, you know, like, even though, like, you're told one thing, don't, like especially not with just spinal bifida, but like with any like type of problem that like people are going to go through when they're like about to have like a kid or something.
Yeah.
Like, don't be in the mindset that something's gonna be wrong. At least have some sort of hope that like they can be fine.
Yeah.
Like, because doctors just go off of statistics, right?
Yeah.
So it's like they're not always right.
Mm-hmm.
So just like those types of things. Yeah, and even though like I'm affected in like my small motor skills and like, you know, my bathroom situation, it's not terrible. It could have been much worse. But yeah.
It's so inspiring,
It
mashallah,
is
to
much
see
more. I think we
this.
take like little
is.
things for granted all the time,
Yeah.
like hearing this.
So,
It's
but thank you so much,
amazing. Very proud
Nurah,
of
for
you.
sharing that. But do you want to tell the viewers out there where they can get your book if they would like to read it?
So you can find it on Amazon.
We
There's
will be putting the link in
Yeah.
the description.
so it's on Amazon for $12.50, and then the Kindle version is $10. So that's where you can find it.
Everyone, go
It's
ahead and
worth
get
it.
your copy.
It is very worth it.
Yeah. And it's a short read too. Like
It's not. It's not
Yeah, it's like
long.
It's
100.
short, but it's also
It's
very
less
funny. Her
also.
personality is all over it, and she's very sassy. And you can see that. You can see like her dry wit and sarcasm like all over the pages. No, I'm serious. Yeah, reading this as somebody who like knows you and your personality, that was a wild ride. Like
It's like it's like 93
Yeah,
pages.
I read it
It's
in
not
your
long.
phone.
Yeah, not
91.
long at all.
Yeah, it's
And
really
when you
short.
read, from personal experience, when you read books like that about personal experiences and, you know, that like non-fictional books, they go by
autobiographical.
so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
go by really, really fast. So again, we'll definitely be linking the link to her book in the bio or somewhere. But Nurah, thank you so much for joining us in this conversation today. Thank you for educating us all and, you know, letting us in your personal experience with spinal bifida. But please make sure to comment and like and share and show some love to Nurah. But until next time, we will see you. Salam.